guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go an entertaining article titled Feminism, the Nose Ring Theory, and Our Potential Extinction. What the indoctrination of third-wave feminism has wrought loneliness. And a shout out to Carrie for sending in this article. And guys, this article comes from a blog called The American Spectator. And it's about a guy who recently was having a conversation with a young gal he was acquainted with, and she was none too happy that a guy she liked rejected her because of her appearance. And why? Because she had 2 nose rings. And this led down a whole path where he covers and reflects upon an article I covered the other day with that nose ring theory video I did, which a lot of you guys saw. And if you didn't see it, I'll post a link to the video. It really talked about, how you can pick out the feminists nowadays because of the nose ring, the septum thing, the circular thing there, and goes in this whole thing, poking fun at it. We all had a good laugh, watching videos and all that, girls complaining, and really, again, addressing third-wave feminism and the mess it's caused. It's pretty entertaining. And in this article, he's going to address those things, but also talk about reality. So whenever we have somebody recognize the mess that the movement caused, the bowel movement caused, I like to cover this. So, starts off, he says here, I have an acquaintance. She's a lot younger than me. I like her, but she's one of those people who thinks she's a rebel by doing things which are annoyingly conventional for women her age. I try not to hold that against her, because it's quite clear she's been propagandized and indoctrinated into a worldview she will hopefully one day discard. I think she's smart enough to do that. Good luck there. And he says, eventually. And because I like to keep politics and even social commentary confined to my professional life and out of my day-to-day life as much as I can, and because she certainly doesn't share my beliefs, at least not at this point in her life, when I see her, I try to steer clear of the heavy stuff. Who wants an argument when it's not necessary? Well, there's one thing you can guarantee. The feminists love to argue whether it's necessary or not, and whether they have a valid point. And when they can't make a valid point, they just insult you. But the other day, I couldn't avoid it. Because the other day, when I saw her, she whined to me that a male acquaintance of hers had told her that her nose ring, she actually has 2, by the way, including the dreaded ring through her septum, that her nose rings was repellent. She said, that's so obnoxious. How can he tell me that? Because he's turned off, that's why. He's actually doing her a favor. I said nothing to her. I just gave her a look as though to say, please leave me out of this. Well, that wasn't good enough for Ashley, which isn't her name, by the way. So she demanded I defend her choice of facial metallurgy. Defend it? No, I'm not going to do that. I've been kind by not saying you look like ridiculous, but if you're going to give me a hard time, okay, I'll tell you look terrible. Which I was absolutely not going to do, as Ashley's tormentor was clearly in the right, no matter how indelicate he may have been. I say to her, why do you care what this guy thinks? Instead of engaging on the subject. I don't, she said, which seems like a lie. Nevertheless, I used that, definitely, I thought, as a means of escaping from the conversation. Yeah, she's complaining that he rejected her, because that's what happened, and God forbid insulted her piercing, but then claims he doesn't care what he thinks. Honey, if you didn't care what he thought, then you wouldn't have brought it up. But Wednesday, I ran across a piece by Tyler Durden from a week ago at Zero Hedge that dived into the nose ring question with far more boldness than I was willing to lay on Ashley. As Durden notes, single men are exhausted with a certain tribe of females in America and other Western countries, and the thumbs are most certainly down. Now, that article came from a blog called Zero Hedge. And I'm not working for Zero Hedge. I have nothing to do with Zero Hedge. But I can tell you guys, check it out. A lot of good stuff on there. Stuff you ain't going to find on the major news sites and all that. And as well as good information, very entertaining. Check it out. Anyhow, so he goes to, in the article, talks about the actual article, reflects on things. Among the videos Durden includes to illustrate the growing consensus among young men in the dating marketplace that certain women are untouchable from the standpoint of a candidate from a relationship is one of the Whatever podcasts. Brian Atlas warning the language here is particularly safe for work. And then he goes in to show a video of one of the girls ranting and raving. In the video I did about the nose ring theory, I had one of the girls, she was sounding off, saying the F word a lot. Then Durden notes that the nose rings have become a definitive tell. And then he goes again, reflects on the article, talking about how the nose ring is a dead on for the feminist. And then he goes on and says, and exactly this: men are generally much worse at sending signals to women as what is desirable and what is not than women are to men. That is easily explained in biology, of course. The male sex drive is not easily controlled, and so guys will put up with things that are utterly intolerable if they think there is sex to be had in the bargain. Yeah. Why do you think so many guys get in relationships with certain gals? Why do you think so many guys date certain gals? Why do you think so many guys who have hookups with gals they wouldn't ever get in a relationship with because they want to potentially get laid? I mean, there isn't a guy listening to this. Okay, let me back up here. There isn't many guys listening to this that have it at one time or another banged a chick who, because they wanted to get laid and they knew it'd be easy, who, you certainly wouldn't want any of your friends to find out. This guy included. Oh my God. But, and this is true in the 21st century than perhaps ever before, while the women might be in control of the question whether there will be sex, the man is in control of the question of how far the relationship will go. Yes, absolutely. How many times have I said this and guys don't understand that? Women have the keys to the bedroom. They control the keys to the bedroom. And men control the keys to relationships. The problem is most guys don't get that. And men do not want the relationship with women who wear rings in their noses. Those women might be worthy of a booty call or even friends with benefits, but that's all they're going to be so long as that circle or horseshoe protrudes from the schnoz. See? Look, guys, I've known girls in my life, women, as I'm sure many of you have, that were no problem for hookups. But relationship, fat freaking chance. Now this, for a disturbingly large percentage of the female population under, say, 35 years old, is not a problem. For many of these women, the nose ring is a signifier that they have no interest in a relationship with a man, and thus they only want men for sex. That might be tragic, and is certainly less than optimal when your national birth rate is far below replacement, and the percentage of children growing up in two-parent households is alarmingly low. But on the other hand, there's certainly symmetry here. They don't want a man, and they sure as hell aren't getting one. Yeah, that young generation. Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0. And yeah, that's major empowerment. Thanks, feminists. When you have this young generation who awfully high numbers, blue hair, green hair, piercings, tattoos all over the place, some combination of the three, attitude, and they're about the hookup culture. And yet they'll whine and complain when guys don't want to settle down, when they decide they're ready. Who wants that? It's hilarious, though, to hear some of these girls insist that they're qualified for a guy who's 6 feet tall, with six-figure income, and the six-pack abs. The way this guy writes, he's got to watch content like mine. Good luck with those expectations. When guys in that profile hear you talk, they'll have one look at that septum ring, and they'll hear his moo. Ha ha ha. That's the funny part. How many times have you heard these gals demanding a guy and feel entitled to a guy who has all those qualities? Top qualities. And by the way, statistically, good luck finding a guy who is 6 feet tall or above, six-pack, six-figure income. Come on here. But they're all aiming for that guy. For God's sakes, finding a guy with one of those qualities, even that is a challenge. And it's like, have you looked at yourself in the mirror, honey? You think you're entitled to that guy? If we have too much of this, we're going to have a whole country of people dying alone, having never actually procreated the species. It's a whole different column that I don't want to write, which I will talk about what the steps will be necessarily to keep our society from dying out. Well, that's the whole idea of the feminist movement. It's chaos. Look at the mess we're in. We got men being conditioned in the schools and by the media to behave like women. And you got the women conditioned by the schools and the media and all that in the movies to behave like men. And both are totally turned off from each other. Which is a real possibility. Did you know that there are some advanced countries, South Korea being an example, where the birth rate is less than 1/3 of replacement? Ours isn't that bad, but it's too low and getting lower. This phenomenon isn't helping. He says, yes, I'm fully aware that we have lots of problems with male performance in the dating marketplace as well. I'll get around to doing a column on that too, provided I survive the fallout from this one. And I feel bad for Ashley. I don't. Ashley brought this on herself, because she's been taken in by a raft of propaganda that makes her believe that she's somehow empowered by presenting herself in a way that makes her less attractive than God made her be. I'm not arrogant enough to think I'll be received as a white knight if I sat her down and tried to shake her out of the indoctrination that third world feminism has laid on her, and besides, it isn't my business. Again, I don't feel bad for her. She's a grown-ass freaking adult. I'm assuming Ashley is an adult, legal adult, and I think she is. If she's fallen for that stuff and gotten herself brainwashed by it, that's on her. But it does piss me off, because the people foistering this on young women know something we've talked about here in this column and in this Spectacle podcast that Melissa McKenzie and I do, which is that single women vote Democrat by a factor of 2 to 1 or more, and the people in charge of the cultural institutions with that power to push the dominant narratives know it. Of course the people that are pushing the narratives know it, and they know darn well what buttons to push. Because let's be honest, the vast majority of people out there are sheep and are going to go along with everybody else and don't think for themselves. And when you have a couple generations now of kids that are not being taught critical thinking skills in school and dumbed down, let's be honest, the schools have been dumbing down the population for a long time. Easy to control. They're doing everything they can to make and keep women single. They don't mind polluting the public square with faces full of metal to get that result. Of course they don't care. And in 5 years or 10, Ashley will wake up and realize the time she's lost having bought into the horrid lies. Hopefully by then the ring will be gone from her septum, the wound in her nose will have healed, and she'll be happy with a husband and children. Well, unless Ashley wakes up and sees the big picture pretty darn soon, because I'm guessing Ashley's probably early 20s, she's going to wake up tomorrow and be in her early 30s, and then maybe dye her hair brown or the natural color, take away the piercings. She can't do anything about the tattoos if she has them, and that attitude will still be there, and by then it'll be a lot harder. Again, like I said, I've been saying this a lot of times, guys, is that, OnlyFans really took off in 2020, pandemic and all that, and some gals have made fortunes from it, others made a living, but most people don't. But the second you put any content online like that, you're screwed. Not to combine with the level of entitlement and the giant body count empowerment thing, but a lot of those gals eventually are going to want to settle down and get married. And by then, guys who are waking up more and more are going to say, no thanks, even though a giant percentage of the population of the gals will engage in varying activities online and other things and high body counts and feminist attitudes, guys aren't interested. And you're going to see endless blogs and TikTok videos and Instagram reels and all that crap whining and complaining because guys don't want to settle down, Well, we're not going to settle for that. No, thank you. So the Ashleys of the world who are young, hopefully, will get their shit together and grow up. Really, but the odds are they're not, and the chaos will continue. Because some angry people that are evil, in my opinion, know how to influence and push the buttons, this is the result you get. But anyhow, he says, but I'm not sure about that, and that is terrible. So that wraps up the article. But anyhow, anytime it's a good one where a guy chimes in about feminism and the mess it's caused, an example he's seen, I'm going to cover it. It's worth it. And that's kind of how I started the whole channel almost 6 years ago. So anyway, guys, if you didn't see the video I covered the other day, I will post a link in this in the comment section here as well as on the description. And you'll see that. And there's a number of girls I got clips of sounding off and complaining. Every single one of them has the septum, the nose ring there. It's pretty funny. Some are pretty serious potty mouths. And it's like, is there any wonder that guys aren't interested in these types of stuff like that? So definitely check it out. You'll get a laugh. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.